Hello, my name is Steve Laidlaw. I'm the founder of Stelor. We have built a digital reserve fund and capital management for condos and HOAs. So Stellar at a glance. We've been growing at greater than 50% each year for the past 3 years. This year we're actually closer to an 80 or 90% growth rate when comparing quarter to quarter. By the end of 2025, we expect to reach $1.2 million in annual recurring revenue and hit 80,000 doors on the platform. In 2022 or 3, we raised our friends and family pre-seed. We managed to raise $400,000 of capital, topped it up with $275,000 of non-dilutive funding and another $175,000 of debt. And that allowed us to bring in resources and increase annual revenues from $250,000 per year to we finished last year at $650,000. And like I mentioned before, this year we expect to eclipse $1 million. We also expanded the team from 4 to 7 employees. And in Q1, we were cash flow neutral or had a small profit on the books. So what's the problem here? What problem are we solving? Over the last 5 years, condos and HOA construction costs have ballooned 60%. That's a 12.5% annualized inflation rate. Most reserve fund studies, which acts as the actual budget for a condominium or HOA, has assumed 3 to 4% inflation. So that means every condo, no matter how well managed, how new, how well funded even they were, how closely they followed their budget and plan, every single condo in North America will be approximately a 50% reserve funding gap. And that's going to result in increased fees, special assessments, and condo borrowing. And how big is this problem? Well, there are 500,000 condos and HOAs in North America. That accounts for about $9 trillion in condo or HOA assets that are at risk for special assessment, at risk for poor capital replacement, and therefore just poor management, poor return for the owners of these condos. And the owners and management are blind to this. They lack data, they lack intelligence, they lack insights. That's where Stellar comes along. As I mentioned before, we've digitalized the reserve fund study. That is the core product that we offer, which is basically a reserve fund study writing tool. And that's allowed us to bring on 5 reserve fund specialists who are actively using that product today. We're growing revenues at close to 100%. Like I mentioned before, we'll be at about 80,000 doors on the platform by the end of this year. Currently today, there's 700 condos representing about 40 to 50,000 doors on the platform. And basically with our core model, just this core offering, in 18 months, we will grow to $1.5 million in revenue. And that's a P90. That's almost locked in growth that I can almost guarantee, I guess. So basically this Stellar RFS writing tool, it started as a very well thought out, process driven, logic based workflow that took you step by step from the time that you request a quote till that quote's approved, till you're out on site doing the on-site inspection, writing the report, the funding model, and delivering the final reserve fund study and invoice to that user. And so that's really how our reserve fund providers are winning. Is just it's very well thought out, logic based, and it's reduced what used to take 30 to 50 hours to write a reserve fund study, and it's brought it all the way down to 10 to 15 hours. And we've recently added an AI productivity tool that will scrape files and set up the kind of the framework for these reserve fund studies. We believe that will bring our time down even further to where we're in the 5 to 10 hours per report, really driving more efficiency and value for our users. Over here, once we have that digitalized reserve fund study, it then goes into property management tools. So property managers can use this for budgeting, comparing actuals to the budget, generating reports, connecting into insurance, investment, financials. We run a viability score, which is basically a risk assessment, and goes over the long-term viability of that property. It's more for realtors and owners or prospective owners who are looking to buy into the condo. And then last, that data set that we have has allowed us to build an intelligent marketplace that is automating the process for obtaining quotes and estimates for the capital replacement that is scheduled to be done. And so how do we make money? Like I said, it starts with that reserve fund study. And so we charge a subscription for the reserve fund writers, those users, and then as well as we assist them with the setup, it's about $2,500 per report. Once that report's written, that digitalized reserve comes into Stelor PM, which is offered to the property managers and condo boards or HOAs. And in there, we then have a number of different products, lending, insurance, the budgeting tool, and that intelligent marketplace, which then add additional revenues. And so the lifetime value of a customer that's obtained through this reserve fund is about $10,000 over, assuming that they use the product for 5 years. As I mentioned before, reserve fund providers win with Stelor BLD, and really what we've done is taken something where they were generating $150 to $200 per hour to write a report, and with just the added efficiencies, cutting time, cutting errors, and just driving the process with our workflows, that we're now approaching $1,000 per hour that our partners are able to generate while writing these reserve fund studies with our tool. So the competition on this side is basically conventional reserve fund writers, people that use a spreadsheet and a Word document. They aren't using software necessarily, probably just a camera and a clipboard and an Excel spreadsheet. Up here are a couple of reserve fund writing tools that we maybe compete with. Home Run IQ would probably be the most intuitive. It's the only web-based platform. These other ones are more like old school Windows desktop softwares. And then as you get into here is where our real competition lies with Smart Property, Homey, and Eli. They're all doing kind of more capital replacement platforms to help condo managers and HOAs. Here's just a forecast. Currently, we operate primarily in Alberta and BC, and with our Stelor BLD and Stelor PM, those two products I mentioned, this is the growth that we've been able to achieve so thus far. And we are now working to enter new markets, really have our eyes on California and Texas here in 2025, 2026. 2 years ago, we were doing $0 of revenue in BC, and in 2025, it will account for greater than 60% of our total revenues. So it shows that we can enter new markets and grow rapidly. Led by a team of industry experts, my co-founder and I met at Detection Technologies, which was a B2B software as a service offering. Had like a web-based diagnostics on like platform on the web, subscription-based. That's where we kind of really got into this industry of web-based software as a service. In between there, I was, I guess, an entrepreneur, and so I was an owner at a small engineering firm, grew it from 500,000 to 5 million. I exited that in 2023, and myself and a couple friends also started a small oil company, fixed it up from 8 barrels to 60, cut off costs, and managed to exit, within about 3 years for a 6x return by selling to 10th Ave Petroleum. There are now 6 people, including the founders on the team, as well as we have an outsourced dev team called Tech Jays, and there's about 6 software engineers that actively work with us through that outsourced offering. So we have a pragmatic actual roadmap to achieve 5x revenue over the next 24 months. What we plan to do is add 12 full-time employees, 200,000 doors, and get to $3 million in gross revenue. We will need to enter and establish ourselves in US markets to do so. How will we achieve those targets? Our current pipeline, like I said, P90, almost guaranteed with our current core offering that we can grow 50% or greater each year. Our pipeline is full, and we are set to bare minimum grow to 1.5-2 million just on that. And then we now offer an insurance referral option that's driving value for both our customers, the condo corps, as well as the brokers who offer insurance to condos. We built an integration with Rent Manager, which is a US-based condo management software. We come in as like a capital management module, and yeah, they have 50,000 users that we can now market into. And last, the new markets, like I mentioned, we entered BC, and a very large portion of our revenue now comes from that BC market. We also plan to enter some US markets here, second half of 2025 and into 2026. And with all those things said, I think that's a very clear roadmap or good line of sight on growing from our year end 2024 revenue 650,000 and growing that to greater than 3 million. So we're raising $2 million to fuel the next stage of growth, and we plan to put 750 into market expansion, 750 into business development, and 500 into product dev. So join us on our mission to protect $9 trillion in condo HOA assets from untimely expenses.